That's not a comic book. Now that's a comic book.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Comic Reviews. I am Sim Part 2, and I am sorry for the late start for those of you watching live. For those of you that don't know, the show is live. Initially. Anyway, sorry for the late start. For those of you watching live, I got off to a late start myself reading tonight, and I also had a whole lot of books to read. So I'm not going to delay too much tonight. We'll get started very shortly. I just wanted to let people know that may be watching live right now. I don't know if I have anybody yet, or just in general the audience, that I'm now starting to post my trade reviews as additional videos. The trade talk will still be contained within comic reviews for people that like to watch it that way. But I've been reviewing. I've been doing weekly comic reviews for about 2 years now, a little more, and I've been doing trades throughout that sporadically, and so I've gathered quite a backlog, and it seemed like someone suggested that I should post them as individual videos, and it seemed like a good idea to me. So as of right now, the day of this broadcast, they are being posted regularly. I've got all this work. They're being posted on a daily basis right now. Sorry, I know this is so professional. And will start to be uploaded weekly once I catch up with myself, basically, is the idea of it. Sorry, I had to fix the date in the description there, because it was initially Comic Reviews 8/161/17. That's not a date I'm particularly familiar with. I don't know about you. So anyway, we've got, like I said, a number of books to get through. So I'm sure I'll say hi to people that show up live, but let's go ahead and talk about what we're talking about today. We're starting off tonight with... No, we're not. That's a lie. Let me reorganize that. Okay, there we go. And I gotta flip this stack over because it's backwards. All right. God, the benefits of live broadcast. We're starting off tonight with Aquaman number 27, followed by DC Comics Bombshells number 33, Silver Surfer number 13, Supersons number 7, Trinity number 12, Batman number 29. Is that right? Yeah, 29. Reading them backwards. Sandman, The Sandman in tribute to Jack Kirby number 1. Batwoman number 6. And Wonder Woman number 28. Those are the singles for this week. And then I've also got a trade to talk about tonight too, called Black Panther Little Green Men. Alright, so it's obviously a very, very full week. We're starting with Aquaman, so let's start with Aquaman. Again, this series I'm picking up for the artist. The writing is by no means, no stretch of the imagination, bad. It's just kind of unimaginative for an Aquaman threat to have him dealing with political outrage from Atlanteans. It's not that you can't tell a good story with Aquaman doing that. It's just that, like, I feel so many people, when they write Aquaman, that's the first thing they go to, and it's one thing that just makes him a stale character. But I'm picking this up for the artist. How's the art? Oh, I think pretty freaking spectacular. Like, okay, you look at this, and you've got this guy right over here with the red and the magicness, and he looks like he'd probably be our stereotypical villain for this group that, you know, has captured Aquaman. And he's one of them. He's the muscle, though. In all honesty, his powers is what makes him threatening. He has no character really to speak of beyond that. The threatening one here is this guy. He's the brains of the operation. Not this guy. This guy. He's the brains of the operation. I love how great a subversion that is, and I'm in love with the way Sejic is drawing this guy. He just looks so freaking cool. Like, I love the way he's just splayed out. He's like a gigantic, evil, purple crawfish that's running a criminal empire. That's cool. He feels like this old school Italian mobster, just stalking around. It's like watching Al Capone if he was a giant crab man. It's so cool, and like just the way his mandibles are drawn is really interesting because he's got the gigantic claw things, but they're just legs too. His arms are shorter ones up here, and that's just a neat thing to show. He's just using what we would normally associate with crab movement for arms as more legs, which is neat. So it's just clever design within design. It's clever choices within how the character looks, and it's cool, man. This guy is just intimidating, and I love it. He is awesome. Oof, man, oh man. I can't get enough of the pages with him. Story-wise, though, there's some interesting politics going around. It's got like kind of a Game of Thrones feel where like there are people acting to help usurp the new king that usurped Aquaman. And in doing so, they're helping Aquaman. But they're not inherently interested in putting Aquaman back on the throne. There's this whole group called like the Sisterhood that's basically like the magic users, the state-run controllers of Atlantean magical resources. And they're doing all these shadow cloak and dagger stuff behind the scenes to undermine the new king because they want to put Mira on the throne, which is an interesting twist. I like that, and I like the just the little cloak and dagger stuff. Here is someone being stabbed in the back of the neck in a dark alley. Literal cloak and dagger. That's cool. I suppose not literal cloaks, because a cloak underwater would be a bad idea. Atlantean fashion wouldn't care for baggy clothing. They'd want tight, restrictive. You wouldn't want flowing things, would you? That wouldn't work out very well. Anyway, Mira goes to Garth? Okay, now help me out, because I didn't watch Young Justice. But the character, the Aqualad in that, people in the comments if you know, who is the Aqualad in Young Justice? I'll probably have to look this up since I only got Grady Childs watching. Hi, Grady Childs, by the way. I do want to look this up while I'm here because I was confused by this, especially given something else I'm talking about later tonight. Yeah, sure. Aqualad Young Justice. What's his name? Calidurum. Calidurum? Okay, it's some supposedly Atlantean sounding gibberish, I think. Okay, so that is not the same character, because I don't know enough about Aquaman continuity to have a nuanced opinion on this, but I'm also reading Supersons, and the Teen Titans show up in Supersons, and we have the same Aqualad from the Young Justice show on the Teen Titans in the Supersons book. But in the Aquaman book, Mira goes to Titan's Tower to talk to someone with Atlantean roots, I suppose. And it's this guy named Garth, who's maybe a different Aqualad. I don't know if it's like an Aquaman continuity thing, if they're like multiple teams of Teen Titans. I have no idea what's going on with this. That's weird. So like I don't know who this guy is in comparison, because like I'm like in the back of my mind I know that there's there have been other Aqualads, but I didn't know any of them by name or by character design. So we have this guy named Garth showing up, and he's a member of Teen Titans. But like what's going on with the other guy and the other team of Teen Titans that does not match up with this lineup we see in this panel. I'm just very confused by that. And comments are telling me Kathy Payton. Hi, Haley. Hello, Haley.
Hi.
Everyone say hi to Haley.
Hi.
She's doing stuff. It's okay. But yeah, just I've never seen this guy, and so that was confusing for me. Read 2 team books, and there's 2 completely different teams with the same name in 1 week. I don't know. It's comics, I guess. But there's just I'm just more interested in the art. There's like this eel-like sea monster thing. That's kind of neat. And it's just cool looking, y'all. I'm digging it. The plotting's getting better. The story is getting better as I'm going, but I'm pretty much here for the art and not ashamed to say it, because when it looks this good, woof. I will say this is one of those cases where it seems like the dialogue is actually stepping on the visual storytelling. Because Dolphin is mute. She can't talk, and her and Aquaman are escaping from this gang. And Aquaman asks her, "Can you use your bioluminescent thing again?" And she gives him this look. And it's very clearly, I don't think I can. Look, like just visually everything in the way that's depicted, the facial expression, the shoulder shrug, this whole motion. That's everything you need. And then, just for no reason, we additionally throw in Arthur saying, "No, you need time to recharge your energy. Down to me, then." I don't know. That's kind of silly to me. I don't think that was really necessary. I feel like just that look would have been perfectly enough to communicate, no, she can't right now. So then Arthur starts fighting this warlock guy, and this I thought was a pretty cool panel break Sejic used, where we've got like the bubbles of water from their clash, but it's just from the general look of it, it's breaking the panel border, intermixing the white of the page with the panel itself, and then also it kind of has that Kirby crackle look to it, given that it's circles. That's really neat. So this isn't like a great book or anything, but it's a gorgeous book, and I hope to see Sejic on more stuff. All right, let's go ahead and move on. DC Comics Bombshells, number 33. Okay, this is the last issue of DC Comics Bombshells, what will eventually be called Volume 1. It is continuing in a series called Bombshells United. I believe that's the exact name. Let me double check that. Yes, Act 2 begins next month in Bombshells United. All right. So this is the conclusion. And for the 7,809th time, I'm going to show you a reason that you should have been reading this book. And you should pick up Bombshells United. Are you ready for this? I've talked about how much I love the politics. I've talked about how much I love the emotion. I've talked about how much I love the humor, the relationships, all the stuff in this book. I've also talked about Marguerite Bennett's amazing ability to just have a ball writing it, and how cool and fun and enjoyable in just a, oh my god, that's so neat, comic book nerd kind of way things get in this book. So before I show you this, I want to have a brief discussion about everybody's favorite movie from the DC Extended Universe. So Batman vs. Superman has a ton of ideas that it just throws out into the world, and some of them were kind of cool ideas with really, really shit execution. Putting Doomsday in the movie where Batman and Superman are supposed to fight, having Doomsday kill Superman, and having that be part of what makes Batman realize, I shouldn't be fighting this guy, I should be working with him. It's a good idea. Wasn't done well. Having Doomsday be created from General Zod is a really neat idea that gets into this like idea of, particularly that version of Superman, him not being able to get away from his past. I give you female Doomsday, created when Feora injected herself with a bastardized mix of science and magic. That is so fucking cool. Oh my god, that is awesome. Female Doomsday. It's like, it's such a different and cool design that doesn't feel like at all what like 90s female Doomsday would end up being. And that's just really neat. Like, I love the short hair, how it goes from like her having the short hair that hangs over to it spikes up, the eyebrows arching out, the vest-like armor of the bone plating. That is such a cool design. Oh my god, I love that. And like, it has this great moment. Years ago, I led a coup to create a new order, a merging of magic and science and dreams from beyond the stars. The first of a genetically superior army. Krypton's Feora Hual, the Soviets' Fyodor Kunlun. Your Doomsday. That's frickin' great. Man, I love this. This is cool. This is a great conclusion, and it's really the epitome of a lot of things, because Feora immediately starts just trashing Supergirl. She has no chance. And it looks like, oh, we're going to do a Death of Superman thing, where Supergirl is going to sacrifice herself to defeat Doomsday. And there's all these clashes and fighting, and she's having this flashback, remembering this kryptonite dagger that Lex Luthor gave to her, that she still has. And she thought, maybe I should use it on Power Girl, but she didn't. And she's sitting here thinking, I should use it on Doomsday. It'll be the only way to stop Doomsday. And she holds the dagger and says, no. And then she looks to her family and her friends and says, I need your help. And this is probably the most clever and interesting way I've seen anyone defeat a supervillain before. And also has some great commentary within it. So Swamp Thing captures and absorbs Doomsday, but can't hold on to her. And I also really like this. I'm not sure how intentional this was on the part of the artist, but I thought it was really cool as a possible reference to Brightest Day, where Swamp Thing became the holder of the white light, the protector of life, and he had the white lantern symbol on him. This outline around Swamp Thing looks like looks like parts of the white lantern symbol, which is neat. Anyway, so Swamp Thing absorbs Doomsday, but he can't hold on to her forever, so she's trying to beat her way out of him. And they talk about the kryptonite dagger, and they melt it down, and then Poison Ivy and the magic users infuse it into vines and cover and use the kryptonite vines to imbue into Swamp Thing to help be the bars of this prison for Doomsday. But there's still the magical side of her that she's using to break out. A magic that was created by the Joker's daughter and requires a sacrifice of 3 to neutralize. 3 lives, Kara. Which 3? And you just see her mother say, "We created this world, my child. We will pay its price. We love you. We are ready." And so the 3 people who have effectively been like parents to her, her mother, her father, and Courtney's birth father, hold hands as they sacrifice themselves to take the magic away from Doomsday. "Do not grieve, Kara. Do not grieve, for I am not gone. I am in you. I am in those who fly because I fell, who live because I came and went before them." Man, that's great. And so we're left in Leningrad, now peaceful, now with the Nazi threat defeated, looking at the hopes of the future, the relationships, the friendships that were built along the way, whether they be for love or family. The possible danger of turning Swamp Thing into a prison and not being able to kill Doomsday. The Swamp Thing is not dead, nor Doomsday within him. Never dead, only sleeping. No evil is ever slain, is it? It's as enduring as the sun. This idea that I really like that. You know, you could give like a whole thing of, oh, well, not to kill her is just this stupid thing that perpetuates a huge threat. And yeah, I'll grant it, but at the same time, there will always be another threat. There will always be something on the horizon, something, no one, there's no magic bullet that solves all the world's problems. And I like the idea of not being able, not having the moral, the strength to kill someone, and having that be something respected and honored, particularly with a, you know, Superman-like character like Supergirl here. I really, really like that. That's a really strong and interesting message to leave this book with. So, Lois Lane and Kara are together now. She has a lovely reminder of her sister in the star of an apple. And there's much more to come. I can only try to make what life is left that little bit better. The long winter, the long sleep, and soon the dawn, the day, the spring. We have a message of hope for the future. Man, I love this. Then we get an epilogue with Catwoman and Lex Luthor sitting around in an invisible jet somewhere above the Atlantic, because we have got to keep the comic bookiness of this together. So Lex Luthor basically summarizes everything that has happened in these 33 issues of Bombshells. The Nazis beaten back, the Tenenbaum terminated, the Joker's daughter disarmed, the ghettos emptied and their people safe. Atlantis risen, the mechanical gods put down, sabotage in Gotham subverted. The siege broken, the Soviet general contained, the army of monsters freed, and your bombshells united the world over. What do you call all that, Miss Waller? What do I call that, Lex? I call that Act 1. Whew. What a great way to end that volume. That is such a great summation of all the amazing things that have happened in this book, and how that's only the beginning. Wow, that's great. And Amanda Waller's holding a newspaper that says, "Telescope sights strange vessel beyond Jupiter, visitors from another world," as she says that. Wow, that's great. Where can the series go? Well, we've not dealt, forgive me if I'm wrong, but I don't think at all with Japan. Japan and China as fronts of the war, as far as I can recall, have not been touched. That is an area that has not been gone into at all in Volume 1. So there's Japan left. And if Act 1 is meant to be part of a 3-act structure, there's still, of course, the looming threat of the Cold War ahead. And that is definitely alluded to in here, the idea of what's over the horizon. How do these superpowers now deal with each other? So there's plenty of room for allegory, political commentary, and storytelling to be told as we go on. I'm really fascinated. I really hope she doesn't just drop Japan, because I would be absolutely fascinated to see with how Bennett writes and deals with the bomb. What that means, what its use means, how it... I don't really want to get into a whole discussion of nuclear politics right now, and the history of the use of the nuclear weapon, but how justifications for its use still do not justify the suffering that it caused. All of that could be incredibly fascinating, and I'm definitely interested to read more. So I continue and plan to continue to read this book. Very excited for what's around the corner on this one. Let's go ahead and move on to Silver Surfer, number 13. This is a good issue. I don't want to give the impression that I don't think it's a good issue. What I am worried about is what always happens when I find a book that I adore, that I fall in love with, and then it like immediately ends. I always have that. And I really hope that's not what's happening here. But in this issue, Norman and I keep forgetting her name every time. Dawn. Norad. Damn, I can't pronounce anything right now. Norin Rad. Thank you. Norn and Dawn decide to attempt to time travel to the past and see her father. But in the process of attempting it, they end up going way too far back. And along the way, like so far back that they see Galactus incubating and the beginning of the universe. And then they keep going further back into a universe that existed before their own. And they are stuck there. The only way out would be the long way back to survive the end of this universe and live to the start and up to the present of the next. And so they're stuck there and they decide to live out their lives with one another. In this new universe, they grow old together, they explore, and when they get too old for Dawn to travel, they create a house together by a beautiful lake that she loves. And she tells him, I know that you've been aging yourself with me day by day. Quit it. So Norn goes back to his young self. And he asks her, since we knew this universe wouldn't last, we decided not to have children. Do you... Now tell me, home, family, these things mean so much to you. You never saw yours again. Never went home. Be honest. Do you have any regrets? She says, and we get this gorgeous splash page of everything that they've seen together. All the people that they've met along the way. I wouldn't change a thing, she says, and then passes away. So Norn buries her, and seemingly a few months later, the universe that they're in starts to end, and he gathers up her matter transformed into energy and follows Galactus's incubator out of this universe and into the next one. Come along, Dawn. I'm taking you home. To be concluded. Want to know what happens next? Don't miss Silver Surfer number 14. That is a heartbreaking and beautiful, gorgeous issue. I am just afraid that now that I've started reading this book, I have cursed it, and it is now it is now going to be stuck in this. It's now going to go through a massive change, or maybe start to end as they've concluded this relationship. Like I'm holding out all kinds of hope that Dawn gets to come back. Maybe she won't remember this other life she had growing old with Norrin. I don't know. but I really, really, I don't know how I'd feel if I started reading a book, had one gorgeous, breathtaking issue, and then literally the next issue, or a few issues down, it's over. Man, that would suck for me. But this issue itself is beautiful, and Allred's art style, with its beautiful simplicity, minimalist art style, really does help make this book feel like it's just timeless, and I adore that about it. This is a love letter to comic books in a very interesting way, which doesn't feel the need to tip its hat every turn at some other artist or great writer. It allows itself to just be a great book that exists and is reverent of the material that it comes from. And that's truly some great writing in comics. Truly some great writing, some fantastic, beautiful visuals that create just this gorgeous, gorgeous piece of work. And it's just cool as shit for such a cosmic book. All right. Let's go ahead and move on to Supersons number 7. It was such a fun book. So the end of the last issue, Damian got aged up by some kind of time manipulator to be in his 70s. And so the Teen Titans are at John Kent's apartment, and they're waiting for Damian so they know what the plan is. And he's in the bathroom again because he's old, and he has to keep going back to the bathroom before he can start to formulate a plan. Oh, that's funny. Oh, I got a kick out of that. It's such a simple joke, and I love it to death. So they're dealing with all this stuff, and they're like, okay, let's go do this thing. Superboy, you're gonna join us. And he's like, but Robin says I'm too young for the team. And now he's too old. Irony abounds. John, it's really simple. We need your help, and so does your friend. And John just has a quick flash panel, which I like, of Superman looking at him and says, and remember, what are we helping folks for, buddy? Good people get involved. That's great. So they take off, and we just get some really cool as ever imagery of this Teen Titans team with one character who's not a teenager jumping into the night sky. Great Child says, in terms of friends, is Damian basically Eric Cartman to John? I wouldn't go that far. He's not that rude and hateful or just downright spiteful or anything like that. Damian is Damian, right? Damian Wayne is a superior, smug little shit that you just can't help but love. And so he just has this air about himself, about just being better than everyone else, and he's that kid that can't wait to grow up. But he's still a kid, and in ways that he doesn't even realize, particularly in social settings, he still acts like a kid. Damian's the kid that asks to be in charge when the adults leave. So he's just got this real sense of smugness and superiority, and he's you know, reflecting that on to how he treats the Titans. And since John is younger than him, well, I'm older, so I get to make the rules. It's not that he's like cruel to John. It's just that he's not a nice friend. He's not a super good caring friend because he's so wrapped up in his own shit. And that is a very real thing. I know I had friends like that. You know, my friend Drew. Okay, this is going to be confusing. I had two neighbors that were very good friends of mine growing up. One of them was named Drew, and the other one was named Andrew. So one night, Andrew and I wanted to go hang out with Drew, but turned out he was across the neighborhood hanging out with someone else, so we just figured, hey, we'll go hang out with all of them. We go there, like, hey, Drew, come on, we're going to go do this thing. And he's like, no, I'm doing this with my friend Tyler. And we're like, oh, come on, this will be more fun. And he's like, no, I don't want to, and neither does Tyler. And Tyler was like, all right, kind of want to. But Drew was acting kind of like smug and full of himself. He's like, no, they're going to be dumb. This is better. And so, like, Andrew and I took off. Man, that guy. Like, we just got annoyed with that. It was just like, that's so fake. You know, like prioritizing friends, acting like some things are better than what you want to do. Like that kind of relationship. That's how Damien is acting to John. And so it's a very real kid kind of relationship, and it makes it really fun. And I really like that Damien keeps getting comeuppance for that attitude. He keeps getting, like, you know, he's an old man right now. As this issue proves, because the Titans did not have John with them, and the only reason the Titans did not have John with them when they first went to go confront these bad guys was because Damien told John he couldn't come because he was too young. So Damien's getting comeuppance for that poor behavior. So I don't know, I just really like that. We get some background on the villain and the bad guys, and I'm sure all that's leading to something, but I don't particularly care. When the Titans show up, and now that they've got John, they're able to fight him. The time guy uses some of his power, which is kind of weakened because he aged up Damien, to freeze the Titans. And as the other two members of this team plan on how they're going to take out the Titans now that they're frozen in time, John is able, using his powers and his strength, to break them out of it. So because of John, the Titans survived this encounter. And then Robin immediately takes charge and tells everyone what to do because he is good at that in that situation. And I love this. So, like, Damien shouts orders at everyone, and he hasn't learned his lesson, which is the perfect way to write a child. Aqualad and Starfire, you take the two in here. Superboy, stay out of the way. Like hell I will. My bad. Like heck I will. Your parents are around, John. You don't have to stop yourself from cursing. It's adorable. Come on, Raven. They take off. They deal with the threat, beat people up. John actually helps and is incredibly useful in the fight. They're able to take out the bad guys, and Damien gets de-aged and immediately acts like a smug little badass. I do like this line where they capture the guy that aged Damien up, and what does it say? The guy's like, I'll turn all of them into their grandparents. And then Raven just shows up and she goes, the last thing you want is for me to turn into anyone in my family, Time Commander. In fact, let me give you a glimpse of how scary that can be. And she does like magical spell, and he's like, oh, and falls to the ground. And Damien's just standing there above him. That's Raven. She's the good cop. This is why Damian Wayne is one of my favorite characters. Such great quips. Ooh, the quip level. Oh, the quips are strong with this one. So yeah, some really great interaction and dialogue, and just such a fun time on this team. So like they defeat him and everything, and they're like, Wilhelm, good, and reconvene at the tower tomorrow night. And do not forget to bring our newest member along with you. He is adorable and great in a fight. Starfire said, talking about Superboy. Well, actually, Superboy's not a Titan. Not yet. Don't and Raven just comes in. She's like, do not let Robin's defensiveness mask his real feelings, Superboy. He respects you deeply. We all do, now that we know you. You're welcome back to the Titans at any time. And John just says like this heartfelt, big-eyed look. He's like, yay! I can see the caption in his head. It's like, yes! And then David, he just has to be a dick, and he just has to ruin it. Don't get too cocky. Your father's a satanic demigod, so you know. Oh, I love it. So then the boys go back to do some investigating, and they're bickering, and then Dimension Rip pulls them in. So, yep. We'll see where that goes. I'm at this point where I'm having so much fun with this book. I'm loving the art on this book. It's got just this great fun feel to it. The plotting of it is probably the weakest thing, but not in such a way that it damages the book at all, because the character interaction is the selling point for this, and the character interaction is on point. The plotting is just okay, is all it comes down to. I'm not terribly interested in where the story is going and that kind of stuff. I just want whatever you give me that gives me this level of fun between these characters, I am on board for. And it's given me that consistently so far, so I'm loving it. All right, let's go ahead and talk about Trinity, number 20, or no, number 12. So now we're back to this whole idea of like the multiple Trinities thing. And when it was an idea of a Trinity of Trinities, that was cool. But now we're introducing Zatanna, Constantine, and Deadman. So we now have 4 Trinities. When it was 3 Trinities, that was cool. You're playing with the Trinity of Trinities. I like that. Throwing in a 4th Trinity breaks that dynamic, and that's dumb. So the only way you're going to get this dynamic back is if you get like 33 Trinities. Just immediately, the second you introduce another Trinity like that, it breaks it. It breaks this. All right, so there's this idea in Magic, and I don't know like how much this is an actual thing that Wiccans or whatever believe. But in popular fiction of Magic, there's this idea that consistent numbers reoccurring have more power. So a Trinity of Trinities is a powerful idea magically. It is further binding the levels and the scope of the power of the magic. That's just an element you'll see appear in a lot of things. I know Gaiman used it in Sandman quite a bit, which is fine. That's cool. Doing a 4th Trinity just like internal logically it breaks that, even if this isn't a full Trinity or something. Doing a fourth Trinity, like, it breaks the internal logic, but it also just breaks the narrative structure. It feels less interesting. And I like Zatanna, and Deadman's okay, and Constantine's whatever. And they're written fine in this. But, man, I just did not like, just doing that was just a bad idea. So anyway, you have the first Trinity, which is, of course, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. You have the second Trinity, which was introduced in this book, which is Cersei, Ra's al Ghul, Lex Luthor. And then you had the third Trinity, which was Jason Todd, Cersei, and Bizarro. Jason Todd's been possessed by demons, and so Batman contacted Zatanna, Deadman, and Constantine to try to save him, as Artemis and Bizarro are still hunting for them. That's fine. It's a neat enough idea, I guess. So they're like, okay, well, we'll try throwing Deadman in there, and maybe he can expel what's possessing them. But the Pandora pits that gave Jason this power and started the whole thing with Cersei are causing problems with that and striking back. And they overwhelm Deadman and pull him into the Pandora pits, apparently. Zatanna tries to stop him, and she gets pulled into the Pandora pits. So it's just the Trinity left with John Constantine. And so John Constantine is trying to figure out where exactly these Pandora pits are. I kind of like this line. He's interrogating the demon, and it's like, blood shall rain down, and the army shall rise, and it is fated that this world will bathe in blood. Your struggles are folly. And Constantine says, gotcha. Now I understand. This is all a prophecy. Slice of nonsense. You're heavy metal, prog rock, Floyd, Genesis before Gabriel left. That means you're gonna lose. And do you know why, mate? Because I'm punk. That was a fun line. I don't like punk. I am much more a classical rock fan, but that was a fun line. I should probably tweet this panel to Superhero Enthusiast. I imagine they'll like that quite a bit, because that's just a fun little exchange of dialogue. So anyway, Constantine just has Superman rip Jason Todd's face open, but because it's magic, it creates a doorway. I don't know. Whatever. And then Constantine just crawls in right as Bizarro and Artemis show up, and the other Trinity has to fight them. Whatever. That's cool. We get the origin of how this happened, how initially Red Hood and Bizarro and Cersei refused to help. I keep saying Cersei. Red Hood, Bizarro, and Artemis refused to help Cersei and Ra's al Ghul, but she kind of just forced these Pandora pits on them and turned them into the demons that are attacking the Trinity. Meh, it's whatever. I just feel it was really weak to introduce another Trinity. I thought a third Trinity was a bit of a stretch. Introducing a fourth is silliness, in my opinion. Let's go ahead and move on to Batman, number 29 by Tom King, and art by Michael Janin. So in this issue, Bruce Wayne has probably what is the dumbest idea ever. The dumbest, craziest idea he has ever thought of. And I am including dressing up like a bat and going to beat the stuffing out of criminals every night. The war of jokes and riddles rages on, and his solution to it is to invite the Joker, the Riddler, and their various thugs to dinner. In my youth, my mother used to say, when all is lost, have dinner. I would object. What was special about dinner? Every night was dinner. Ah, not just any dinner, she'd say. Traditional, French, 9 courses. Not eating, the art of eating. The art of sitting at a table and taking time to understand your food. To understand the company with whom you've chosen to share this food. If you do it right, and by right she meant proper, prepared, practiced. If you do it right, it can save you. That is ludicrous. That is an absolutely absurd and mind-boggling idea that I would never in a million years see coming. For Bruce Wayne to invite the Joker, the Riddler, Mr. Freeze, Scarface, the Penguin, Killer Croc, Two-Face, and Poison Ivy to come have dinner at his house to try to solve a gigantic gang war that is tearing Gotham apart. And that's brilliant because, of course, an absurd solution is the solution to use when you are dealing with the absurd. That's great. I love it. That is hilariously brilliant. So, is this every page? Not quite. So the issue is broken up by showing the courses of the meal and what they're eating along the way and the conversations they're having in between those courses. And for a lot of the book, the pages are structured in such a way that you get a course, part of the conversation, page turn, a course, part of the conversation. That's really clever writing, and it just looks great on the page and intimidating. So what is Bruce Wayne's plan? Or at least, what is he telling them his plan is? Because I don't know how much I buy that this is Batman's plan. All right. So they're sitting there having a conversation. And they both tell him that they want to kill Batman and why they want to kill Batman and how they want to kill Batman. So Bruce says, all right, we've made progress. We're close. You want to kill Batman, so does he. I understand. So why don't we do this? Convince me now, quickly. Give me one good reason Tell me why you should and he shouldn't. I'll decide the better case, and I'll give $1 billion to the winner. With that money, you can bribe all of the other fellows' troops, turn the whole city on Batman, strangle him, shoot him, and once you've accomplished that, the reason to fight will be gone, and the fight itself will be gone, and the Wayne fortune will have, again, saved this city. Chris Cooper says, Ian, who do you think won the money? I don't know, man. It's like this really frustrating, lingering question, because then they give their reasons for why they should be the one to kill Batman, and it's in equally distributed panels, which is really interesting. They each get this 8-panel grid to explain why they want to be the ones to kill Batman. And Riddler, of course, has this very elegant, reasoned out thing where most of his panels are just walls of text. And then the next page, you get Joker, who's got one reason. Blank panel, blank panel. Why should I kill the Batman? Isn't it obvious? I'm the Joker, he's the Riddler. And in the end, who cares about the Riddler? So Joker's answer is not this profound reason why he should get to kill Batman. It's a fuck you to the Riddler. So they leave, and Bruce and Alfred are later sitting there in the cave. And they're having a conversation with how Mother would have been mortified the way that dinner went in their home. Not because it's the Riddler and the Joker and the villains of Gotham, but because they let the guests leave after dessert, not offering sherry or even coffee. Mother would have been, it's just not good, is it? And you have that overlaid with Batman's dialogue that he's giving to Catwoman, because this is all framed as a story he's telling to Catwoman. I didn't lie to them. After the deaths of Deadshot, after Deadshot, I'd realized that the only way to stop the war was for one side to win it. I arranged the dinner to judge them, to see them up close, to see which was worse. And after, I knew which would get the money, and with the money, the real help he needed to defeat the other. I knew which man I'd go to as Batman, which man I'd fight for, which side I'd join. Batman's going to join a side in this war. What does that mean? Who won the bet? Who won the argument? Who gets to have Batman or Bruce Wayne supporting them? Or does Bruce Wayne support one, Batman support the other? That's this really interesting, lingering question. That's what I'm kind of thinking is I think Bruce Wayne will throw his support to one side, and then Batman will go join the other side to completely fuck the entire equation. I have no idea how this is going to go, what's going on here, and I am just edge of my seat as I read this book. Absolutely fascinating, absolutely thrilling, beautiful command of panels and structure, and just really great visual storytelling from Janin here. Some absolutely excellent things are shown in this book, and I love it for that. There's some great stuff with coloring and going from black and white to color. I love this page. I love these spreads. These spreads are gorgeous. like this one of Bruce Wayne in the middle of this table between the two of them perfectly epitomizes what the fuck he's going through with this goddamn war. And like, there's great details here. Behind the Riddler is a portrait of some dogs and a horse. That's really fascinating. I'm sure that means something. That's a neat choice. Oh man, I got a folded page. I'm sad now. Man. And then there's this spread that just shows Batman defeating the both of them multiple times. Oh, sorry about that. And them on opposing sides. Batman, yes. Well, Batman is problematic. Indeed, my pale friend, yes. He is rather problematic. Okay, so to answer Chris Cooper's question, I think Riddler gets the money and Joker gets Batman on his side. And I think that's Batman's mistake. Far be it for me to call Tom King, because Batman having a freaking dinner with Joker and the Riddler, nope, never saw that coming in a million years. That's my thought, though, is that Batman's mistake was letting the Joker, was being on the Joker's side. Letting the Joker live and to find something funny again. That is my thought. We'll see how that pans out. I will not be surprised in the slightest if I'm wrong, since I have not been particularly good at all in predicting anything with Tom King in his run, which is great because I've just been on the edge of my seat, not being able to really call how these stories are going to play out. Let's go ahead and move on and talk about The Sandman, #1, oversized special. So for those that don't know, this month would have been Jack Kirby's 100th birthday. And so DC's been publishing these issues in tribute to him. Stories told and drawn by artists that love Jack Kirby for his work. This issue has stories by Dan Jurgens and Steve Orlando, and it has art by John Bogdanove. That's hard to call. Sorry, names are difficult sometimes. And oh, where's the other artist credit at? Steve Orlando is the writer, and Rick Leonardi is the artist on the second story in this. So we get 2 short stories with Jack Kirby Sandman, and then a boatload of really, really short stories by Jack Kirby himself, which is really cool. So, if you know anything about me, you know I love Sandman. If you didn't know that, good thing I'm reposting the trade reviews, because there's a whole series of them coming. You'll see me talk about all the volumes of Sandman. Everything except the first, but we did a Geeky Gentleman on the first 12 issues, so there you go. I love Neil Gaiman's Sandman. And here's an interesting story about Neil Gaiman's Sandman. Neil Gaiman wanted to write this. Neil Gaiman approached DC and said, hey, I have an idea for a series starring Jack Kirby's Sandman, who of all the Jack Kirby characters isn't a particularly super well-known or highly revered character. There's a great story in the back here told by, what's his name? Mark Evanier. I'm going to say Evanier. Who was an assistant to Jack Kirby and wrote a book about him. There's a story in here about how Jack didn't really have any interest in Sandman. He did with Joe Simon. He and Joe Simon worked on the original Sandman with the gas gun back in the 40s, and that sold fairly well while they were on it. And then when they left, sales tanked. And so when they were back at DC in the 70s, the editor-in-chief wanted to get them to write Sandman again, or get them on a book together to write Sandman again, and Jack didn't want to do it because he didn't want to be drawing for anyone else at that stage of his career. He wanted to draw and write his own stuff. But you know, Jack Kirby's just the nicest motherfucker in the world, so he did it anyway. He did some drawing and retooling, and basically just took the original pitch that was given to him and built it from the ground up. Joe Simon helped on it, and then he was like, I mean, it's fun. He did a couple covers and helped with the art a little bit when it was, you know, crunch time, but he didn't have a ton of interest in the character. But of course, like everything Jack Kirby touched, it was gold, and other people were able to run with it. And so Sandman was a fairly popular series in the 70s by Jack Kirby. Neil Gaiman, of course, grew up reading that stuff as a comics nerd. And so in the 90s, late 80s, early 90s, Neil Gaiman went to DC. He's like, hey, I've got a great idea for a Sandman series, and I want to write, you know, the Jack Kirby Sandman. And they told him, we can give you a book, but you have to create an original character. You have to create your own Sandman. And so as brilliant as Morpheus and all of that stuff is, it was not some grand story he had been planning for years up to that point, as far as I can tell. He came up with that shit as he went. Fucking course. So I'm a huge Sandman fan of Neil Gaiman's Sandman. I think it's one of the most beautiful things I've ever read. And I always find that amazing that it started out wanting to just do this, which is always, it's incredibly fun. But this Sandman, I will admit, if you were going to do this, if you'd called him and you told him it's in reference, it's in tribute to Jack Kirby, I have a feeling you would have gotten Neil Gaiman to write an issue or write a story for this. But Jurgens and Orlando do a fine job. So in this issue, we get two stories, one by Dan Jurgens. In it, we get this reference to the original Kirby Sandman, where he is, you know, in the dream globe defending the dreaming. Philip Kelton says, I have Sandman, but I haven't read it. Like this Sandman or Neil Gaiman's Sandman? Because if it's this Sandman, that's fine. You know, read it once the show's over. If it's Neil Gaiman's Sandman, turn off the video and read all of Sandman tonight. Anyway. So we have this Sandman who is in the globe, which is kind of like his Fortress, Solitude, Batcave, whatever. And it immediately, page 1, the Kirby influence is strong. The amazing tribute and love for Jack Kirby is already here. Page flip later, it is all over the art of this book. That is a beautiful, beautiful shot. Holy shit, that's great. I am just like in love with this. already. That looks great. Like, I'll be honest, and I know I'll get a lot of flack for this. Kirby did some beautiful work in comics. I've never been a huge fan of the way he drew people. It is just my personal taste. I do not like the way that Jack Kirby drew human beings, or most of his aliens that weren't like, you know, weird creatures for that matter. It's nothing necessarily wrong with it. I get that what he was going for was very different comparatively, but I've just never cared for the way that Jack Kirby draws humans. What I love in Jack Kirby's original work is the way he drew environments, the amount of detail and the crazy visuals he was able to pull off in environments and stuff like that. It was always so cool. Here's a pretty good example of that. Look at how Jack Kirby drew space. Look at this rocket ship. Doing a checkerboard pattern on a cylindrical object in two-dimensional art or otherwise is a fucking nightmare to get things to look symmetrical and just right. I mean, just fucking try to draw a straight line on your goddamn piece of paper. Here, we'll do this experiment right now. I got a piece of paper and a pencil right here. We'll just bang this out. Okay, I have a grid for me, so I already know what a straight line looks like on this piece of paper. You ready? I'm going to do my level best to draw a straight line freehand. Okay? That doesn't look half bad. That's not a half bad straight line. Here's a straight edge. I veered. Matthew Ben says, or, you know, use a ruler. Yeah, you can use a ruler to draw a straight line. Here's the problem with that. Look, ruler, straight line, perfectly straight line. Okay, cool. There's a cylinder. Let me use a straight edge on it and draw a checker pattern. I broke the depth perception. Doing that breaks the depth perception. That's a bitch. So, like, just seriously, just the amount of work that is going into a single fucking panel of Jack Kirby's background art. No other artist would throw in a fucking checkerboard pattern on a goddamn rocket ship for shits and giggles. Freehand. Chris Cooper says, use Photoshop. Jack Kirby didn't use fucking Photoshop. So, yeah, he probably used a straight edge and probably didn't draw it completely freehand, but guess what? You can't just use a straight edge like a straight edge. You still have to curve the line to make the line appear straight in a checker pattern like that. And it's for one fucking panel. Like, it doesn't matter if he didn't use a tool to help him. It's the fact that that is so unnecessary, the amount of work that went into that single goddamn panel. There's no limit to the amount of respect I have for the detail Jack Kirby puts into his environments. I just don't care for the way that he draws people. So we get this, we're 2 panels in this fucking book. We get this opening sequence that just like from the opening page to the next of just this gorgeous view. Chris Cooper wasn't MS Paint around then. Okay, I can't tell if Chris Cooper is woefully young or is trolling the fuck out of me. MS Paint was around in Jack Kirby's lifetime. He still didn't use it because he was in his 90s. Anyway. So yeah, they discover a boy who is having horrific nightmares that are so bad they're on the verge of manifesting into reality, and they will not be able to ever put them back into the land of dreams. So there's no choice but to travel into the boy's dreams and try to fight off the monsters as Sandman with his partners Glob and Brute. We're talking about Photoshop. I am saddened that Jack Kirby did not survive into the modern age of art. Jack Kirby's art was always very heavily emphasized on geometrics, and it's great to just have some of his stuff here so I can show you that. Again, the cylindrical shape of the rocket ship was a pretty good one, and doing the checkers on that was a really neat idea. Look at this train that's in this panel. That's, you know, geometrics. Look at the operatings of the engine, geometrics, depth perception. Jack Kirby loved volumetrics, geometric shapes, and using that in his art. As someone who does 3D art, I would adore to see Jack Kirby do some work with 3D. He didn't live long enough for the technology to be anywhere near useful for someone of his age. But he inspired the fuck out of other people who do have that technology at their disposal. So let's take a look at Sandman and his partners traveling through the land of dreams to go to this little boy. The impact of Photoshop on the comic book art world is immeasurable, and we go from 2 pages of just love letter to Jack Kirby, to as far as the art goes, to this immediate blend of Jack Kirby and the kinds of shit he would just draw to communicate crazy ass abstract ideas thrown in the background as stark and real and ridiculously incomprehensible as possible, but with modern technology. That is awesome. Matthew Bennett is like, holy shit, what is that? That's them traveling through dreams. You have the star pillars, the what do they call them? The pillars of creation. Pillars of creation, that the pillars of gases that create stars in the background. You have a skull, you have a gigantic sculpture, you have monkey skulls with stuff growing out of their eyes. You've got planetoids, sponges, sea urchins, stars. It's beautiful. Oh, man. So anyways, they get to they're able to break through and get to the child's mind, where they're confronted by beasts consuming his mind. and horrible beasts of all kinds of nightmarish preposterousness, consuming and infecting and running rampant within the mind of this child. And just as this one single monster with like this Medusa-like head seems to be completely overwhelming and possibly defeating the heroes of this story, someone comes out of nowhere to save the day. Saves the Sandman from the monster and is able to defeat it and help them. And the Sandman asks, "Who are you?" And the guy just smiles and looks at him. "Strong silent type, huh? Alright, you deal with these monsters. I'll go into the real world and try to save and try to wake the child to end all this nightmarish horror." So Sandman goes into reality and into the kid's bedroom and sees all the monsters he's dreaming about starting to take form in reality. See him? Right there, holding Sandman. One of those monsters that's starting to become reality from this child's dreams. Looks an awful lot like Darkseid. Anyway, in reality, the superhero that saved Sandman earlier reappears and asserts himself, taking over and fighting off the monsters to help Sandman save the day and wake the child. And he's like, "Who are you? Now that these monsters are going to fade away, that the child's waking, tell me who you are." And he looks over, and this hero himself is fading because he was one of the child's dreams too. A selfless hero who would rather destroy the monsters than get to survive in the real world. And so Sandman looks at him, looks at the child who's fallen back asleep and is now dreaming peacefully. This boy's imagination is off the charts, maybe the most unique ever. His drawings are testimony to that, and perhaps even the key to an amazing future. Sleep well, son. He is quite as special, incredibly creative. That I have little doubt. That young man's dreams will lay the groundwork to a fantastic future. So we have a child in bed, surrounded by his drawings. Signed with Jack Kirby's full name. Anyone else feel a little emotional, a little teary-eyed, a little choked up for that one? Am I the only softie here? Everyone else is talking about silly stuff. I thought that was a beautiful salute to Jack Kirby. I thought that was a fantastic nod. The fact that Darkseid is one of his nightmares. Wow. That was great. That's only the first story. Second story is about a guy named Jed Walker. Okay. And of course, if you read Gaiman Sandman, Jed and this version of Sandman come up in our plot elements. It's just one of those things. Like, it comes up, Gaiman addresses that there have been multiple Sandman in the DC universe and deals with it. Jed is a very, very important part of that story. And so we now deal with adult Jed, who's kind of running away from his problems and afraid to go, like, didn't talk to his grandfather for so long that he couldn't remember the last conversation they had when he was attending his grandfather's funeral. And this is keeping him in a nightmare state as he tries to sleep. So Sandman is there to try to save the day. And he's going to help Jed by recovering a dream that is almost lost to the March of Time. March of Time is personified by this character, Psychopomp. So they take some nightmares, which are literal horses from the dreamland, to go confront this guy and save this one last dream that is almost forgotten and done away with. Sandman confronts him and they're fighting and yada yada yada. And his assistants open up one of the cages on these dreams, and it's an old man, Ezra Walker, Jed's grandfather. Almost forgotten. They're able to save him and bring him into Jed's dream. And the two have a conversation. Jed says, "I should have called, visited. I thought about it almost every day, but something always came up. I thought you'd always be here. This place is a part of me, but it embarrassed me. I thought it did, at least. By the time I came looking for it, it was gone." His grandfather says, "I missed you, Jed. I was angry. I was stubborn, too. I could have spoken first, but I waited. We both needed to stop waiting. It was almost too late, but only almost. There's still one place you can visit, one moment you can remember, and it's right here." That's just a really touching story, and tribute to the idea that even if you've lost someone, they live on with you through your memories of them, through your dreams. Bam. I don't know what else to tell you. Chris Cooper says, "Man, I'm mad I passed on this." I don't see this one flying off the shelves. You know, Sandman, of all Jack Kirby's creations, Sandman is far from his most popular. This book's not flying off of stands. You should have the chance to go in and get this again. I'd go in sooner rather than later. But with all these Kirby books, I would not be too surprised if we got a collection of all of these crossovers. I think we're getting like 12 books or something like that. You know, I picked this up in the hopes that Gaiman, Sandman, Morpheus would show up in some way, shape, or form, and I would have loved that. It would have been a great bridge between the characters and everything. I don't need that, obviously, but I would have been really happy to see it. That didn't happen, but man, I'm so glad I picked this book up regardless. Even though it wasn't what I've been hoping for, it was still a really, really solid read. And then we get reprints of Jack Kirby's stories. And these are really interesting little, very, very short stories. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Yeah, we get however many short 2-page stories. 2, 3, 4, 5. And it's not even like it's dense 2 pages. These are mostly 5 to 6 panel grids. 5 panels, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That was 2 5-panel grids for a complete story. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 panels, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Another 10 panels, another story. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 panels for a complete story. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 panels for a complete story. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 panels for a complete story. Economic storytelling. And I mean, I'll say, you know, a lot of people, and this probably may be more controversial than anything else I've said tonight, and I talked about nuclear weapons. A lot of people will say that, you know, Stan Lee was a thief and he stole all the credit from Jack Kirby's genius. Jack Kirby was the real genius. And I certainly agree that Stan Lee was a glory hog and took way more credit than he deserved for the Marvel Universe as we know it today. But I do also think that it is wrong to say Jack Kirby was the only one who came up with the brilliant level of storytelling and dialogue and stuff that you saw in classic Marvel Comics. Because this final story is a pretty good example of some of the problems that I have with the way Jack Kirby himself writes. He's a really good plotter. The man was an idea factory. He just spat them out like crazy. Jack Kirby will throw out more ideas in 5 panels than entire books will get in 10-issue runs. All right? He will throw out, use, and drop an idea within 1 page. You'll have things just left and right Jack Kirby like that when Jack Kirby is the only one writing. And that can cause problems, and it can cause things to get lost in the shuffle. This story is a pretty good example, and given that it's 9 panels, I'm just going to read it to you. Tales of the DNA Project. During the routine physical examination of a maturing DNA human, the subject who represented a special experiment suddenly became violent and attacked a security guard present in the room. Had he proved the theory that crime was transferable through the human cell? Was there such a thing as the genetic criminal? Fun, enjoyable narration. So we get this panel of this DNA human attacking this, you know, dressed up military guard. And then there's this doctor-looking character in the background. Quick, send a security patrol to the medical section right away. And the soldier tries to fight the guy. I'll teach you to get out of hand, you second-rate human. Try it, smart guy. Action panel of the DNA human punching out the soldier. That does it. You're too dangerous to live. Tries to shoot him. Yeah, I'll bet. Takes the gun. Especially since you've learned why DNA subjects act this way. Breaks his hand, taking the gun away. Ow, my hand! Soldiers rush in as the gun is pointing, really interesting, directly at the reader, putting us in the perspective of the soldier on the ground. Okay, we'll take that gun. It's all over for you. Cuts to the soldier with his hands up and the army men arresting him. And we do mean you. You're the foreign agent who entered the project in one of our uniforms. Intelligence just gave us a rundown on you. So they take him away. You got the information you came here for, but it backfired on you. Many DNA subjects acquire a sharp sense of ESP. This one discovered you at once. Later. So it's just the DNA human alone. You also showed good aptitude in handling your fists and hand weapons, Model 4. Perhaps, sir, but it doesn't prove I will turn antisocial. And Model 4 never did, even though he was grown from the cell tissue of Floyd Bullets Barstow, a gangster executed for murder. That was a fun, enjoyable story. Just in 9 panels, that was a fun, enjoyable economic story. It's got a twist. It's got, drama. It's got action. That's all fine. It's called The Criminal Cell, and we don't find out the drama of, like, the whole thing is, oh, this experimental human is attacking a soldier, and the guy is calling for security in the first panel. We don't find out the drama of why it seems he's gone off the rails, or why we should be suspicious of him going off the rails, until the last panel of the sequence, where we find out, oh, he was grown from the cell of a murderer. So maybe he's got murder in his DNA. That's the whole point of the story. But just on a structural level of how you tell stories, that is not effective storytelling. That is giving us the explanation after the fact. And I mean, it's 9 panels, it's whatever. But like, that's just kind of the thing I often have when I read Kirby, is things just, they're not quite polished all the time. There's always these things here and there that just are a little bit off. And did Stan Lee take too much credit away from Jack Kirby? Did he function more as an editor than as a writer? Arguably. Most definitely arguably. I think it would depend on the issue. But Jack Kirby's always, even in the stuff I love by Jack Kirby, he has always had trouble with dialogue. And his plotting is not perfect. I admire Jack Kirby's art and his ability to visually progress a story immensely. But when it comes to how he writes the actual words that you read of a story, I find that he is very much lacking, particularly in dialogue and in just plotting and structuring the thing. So I always find that problematic when I read Kirby stuff. And so I don't think that Stan Lee deserves all the credit he's gotten, but I do also feel it's a mistake to just shove it all to Jack Kirby instead. It was the Marvel method. They co-worked on things, and Jack Kirby carried a lot more of the weight than Stan did in many instances. But to propose the idea that Stan Lee did nothing in that partnership, I've always found to be just a little absurd. So take that for what it's worth. But anyway, in the other short 2 pages of this, we just get other weird stories of madness and crazy things happening. My favorite is and now the Arren, the Armored Man, in which we have a guy grown in a lab that's in a vacuum room, like a room without any air. He was born and created, genetically created to be alive in a vacuum. And this story is just about how he is sent off into space to go live and thrive in space with a backpack that is not part of his biology, but instead contains the DNA of Superman, so that if they ever wish, or if the Earth is ever threatened, Superman can be cloned and regrown and save the world, save the universe again, and cannot be stamped out by destroying the Earth. I like that story. That was fun. I should also mention that story does not have the problems I talked about with the other one, so it's a case-by-case basis. And again, this is also the story with the panel with the checker pattern on the rocket ship, which is incredibly it just shows the level of detail Kirby put into his stuff. That's always really, really enjoyable. So yeah, I enjoyed the hell out of this book. This was a really, really strong issue. Highly recommend picking this up. You know, I'm not sure. Am I getting just like all of the Jack Kirby books? Where is that other? I need to see them, so I'm just grabbing my copy of Mr. Miracle here. Are they just moving on and now they're out? Okay, so let's see here. I'm getting the Dark Side special. I got the Orion book, got the Sandman book. I haven't gotten Manhunter or the Newsboy Legion. And I don't know if Black Racer. Ooh, Black Racer's by Reg Hudlin though. I might have to get Black Racer too. I don't know if I'll get Manhunter or the Newsboy Legion and the Boy Commandos special. The Newsboy Legion, of all the things that Jack Kirby wrote, the Newsboy Legion is the most intolerable thing I've ever read by the man. I cannot stand the stuff with Jack Kirby's Newsboy Legion. That is really hard for me to read. There is a certain point at which I'm like, okay, the Silver Agery craziness is just too much for me. What came out last week, Chris? Was it Newsboy or was it Black Racer? Chris Cooper's telling me one of those came out last week, but he says that, and since it's not directly live, it's hard for me to tell. Anyway, I'll wait for Chris's response before I move on. Okay, Newsboy. Yeah, I have a real hard time with the Newsboy Legion. Like, Graham Morrison loves it to death, and he put it in 7 Soldiers of Victory in there. It was awesome, but that's one of the things, I can only experience it through someone else's eyes, because when I read it, man, that is a hard read. Okay. Whew. Chugging away at this, guys. Batwoman number 6. Okay. So I've talked about Tynion the Fourth and Bennett writing this together, and how it's pretty much just all felt like Bennett. It really hasn't. It hasn't been a particularly like, it just didn't feel like Tynion was touching it at all. Like, I've read so much of Bennett through Bombshells that, like, I understand her style, like, especially, she gives these speeches. She likes to overlay narration and just show action, stuff like that. And those aren't unique traits, but there's a particular way in which she does it that's just very telling. She likes to put songs in her stuff. That hasn't appeared in Batwoman yet. But like, I've just gotten a taste of what Bennett's writing style is from Bombshells, and so far it's just felt like Bennett. And I've also read enough Tynion just over the years, because he's one of those guys who's just kind of like everywhere in comics, that I know his writing style. I think this is his issue. I think this is more Tynion than it is Bennett in this issue. And this is the one that's set in the future. It's called Pax Batmana, and it's about like a dystopian future in which Batman is ruling over Gotham City with like surveillance drones and all kinds of stuff through Brother Eye. And so Kate Kane sneaks into a part of Gotham that is free and tries to talk to Renee Montoya about like a plan to save Gotham or whatever. But SWAT police break in and they have to fight him, and during the fight, Renee Montoya is shot, and Kate is with her as she dies, or at least assumedly dies. But Renee Montoya's last words to Kate are, "You need to do it, Kate. You need to be the one to do it, even if it destroys us all. You need to kill Batman." And so Kate says proudly, "I promise you, Renee, I will. Tim Drake will pay for what he's done to this city." Kerchoom! Like, I'm not adding it. Kerchoom! Mind blown! What a twist! This November, Detective Comics number 969, The Fall of the Batman. Next, in Batwoman number 7, Fear and Nothing. And I saw Tynion say on Twitter that this is the last issue of Batwoman. Last issue in which he's involved. So, Bennett's just doing the book now? I'm cool with that. Definitely cool with that. And again, I'd questioned how much Tynion was involved, because this definitely doesn't read like a standalone or like a Bennett issue. It doesn't feel like a Bennett issue. It feels like she maybe helped a bit, particularly with the scene between Renee and Kate. But it doesn't particularly come off like Bennett to me. And so I think that all these flashes to future Kate dealing with this kind of dystopian future very well could have been Tynion's addition to the book. And I've definitely been curious about that stuff, I'm not going to lie. But I tried reading the detective run. I read, like, I think the first two, or yeah, I think I read the first 2 issues of the detective book, and I couldn't do it. It just did not interest me. And so I'm not particularly interested to follow the direction of this future story. And like, I hope for the best for Tynion, and I'm sure the Batwoman's character in that stuff will be interesting, but if Bennett's not credited on the detective book at all, I have very little interest in reading more of that for Batwoman's story. Because I do not feel that the future stuff, being that it's set so far in the future, is going to have enough of an effect on what Bennett's doing with the character right now. And so, yeah. I don't know, like, I will say this opens feeling very much like Bennett. Gotham City years ago, Kate Kane lying in the alley that she first spots Batman in. I was lost before I saw it. The power of it, the dread, the awe. I was drowning in a drift, unable to breathe. The bat was an anchor, a shield. It's been a warning and a weapon. It's been a promise and a prayer. I wanted to wield it myself, for myself. I remember everything it's meant for me, for Gotham, for everyone. Until now. And now it's a symbol of dystopian rule. So apparently, at some point in the future, Tim Drake took on the mantle of Batman, ran Brother Eye, and turned Gotham City into a dystopian future ruled by, you know, jackbooted thugs that wear Batman-looking armor. So, wish you the best, Tynion. If that sounds like something you're interested in as a reader, go for it. More power to you. I'm more interested in what Bennett's doing with Kate Kane as a character. So, best of luck to Tynion, though. let's go ahead and move on to the last single issue of the week, which is Wonder Woman, number 28. Another good issue that continues to deal with the shit Wonder Woman is putting herself through. There's this really relatable feeling I've been having to some of what's going on in here, particularly with all the news lately. And it's like, it's really hard to read what's happening in the world. It's just hard to be present for that and see that kind of stuff going on and just sit by and be a witness to certain things in the world, to the worst of the world, really. And here we have Wonder Woman going through where she is actively trying her best everywhere and every way she can to help people. She's committing herself 100% of the time to helping people. But there's also this idea that you have to take care of yourself. You cannot do that to yourself because you're just creating a problem you're just creating another problem in addition to it if you destroy yourself along the way trying to save the world. So like we have Wonder Woman sitting here in a hospital waiting room trying to, waiting around to take Etta Candy home, and she's sitting there like talking to the general commander or whatever on the phone, asking if he's got any work for her yet. And he's like, no, things are relatively quiet. Just take care of Etta, blah, blah, blah. And she's sitting there and she's listening to the news. More than a dozen people were injured in the pileup. She sees someone crying in the hospital waiting room. And she goes to comfort that person. And the woman says, they said 6 months, that'd be just before Sarah's birthday. She won't even remember him. And she says, thank you. And Wonder Woman says, I wish I could do more. Because she was just sitting there listening to this woman's problems of some kind of horrible diagnosis in her family. Then Etta's discharged from the hospital, and Wonder Woman takes her home, cooks dinner for her, and is washing her plates when she cracks him, insisting that she has to help, that she has to be there to help her, that she's taking care of Etta right now. And she breaks her plate. Sorry, I want to take the load off my Corningware and tell me what's on your mind? I don't want you to die. Oh, sweetie, it was a flesh wound. I'll be good as new in a few weeks. I mean, ever. No matter how hard I try, there will be a time with you, with Stephen, when no power of mine will be able to stop it. She just kind of collapses, crying onto Etta. Let it out. Why do the patrons allow it? Across the world, I find no peace, no respite, except interrupted by senseless violence and combat. As Wonder Woman has to deal with a sniper trying to attack herself and Etta. So yeah, Wonder Woman's not getting a second to unload. And that's a horrible thing to do to yourself. And it is affecting her. It is compromising her. She is having to deal with thing after thing after thing, each one more horrible than the last. and she's not having any time between it. And that is creating a really, really harsh reality for her to deal with. So anyways, fight with the sniper, and she finds out that sniper was hired to, on a hit, the price was put on Diana's head, and so assassins from all over the world are coming after Diana now. And she doesn't quite know who's doing it, but they have resources and they're hiring someone to take out Wonder Woman. So in there, as they get ready to leave, because more assassins will be coming, they need to be somewhere more fortified and away from the civilians. Let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 assassins show up on the street as they go out. So it's just no quarter. She is being attacked on all fronts. She has more people right now at that last page. She has more people trying to kill her than she has limbs to fight them off with. That's solid. That is just really good, dealing with giving the character something internally to deal with while they just are out there trying to save the world. That is solid writing. Really, really impressed with this. This run on the characters, 3 issues in, and it's really good. So again, I cannot recommend enough to start picking up Wonder Woman right now. 3 issues is all you got to grab. Rucka's stuff, I mean, it's affecting the book. Like, the most profound way it's affecting the book is in the language they are using and some of the character dynamics. Like the fact that Etta Candy had a thing with Barbara Minerva. That's affecting it. But like the amount of the impact that is occurring in this on the characters themselves is let me rephrase that. If you haven't read Rucka's run, if you know who Wonder Woman is, where she comes from, who Etta Candy and Steve Trevor are, and that Wonder Woman, no, you don't even need to know that. They tell you that. Those 4 things. Who Wonder Woman is. She's Princess of the Amazons. She's Wonder Woman. She's Diana Themyscira, Diana Prince, whatever. She's a superhero. She saves people. Has a lasso of truth. Where she came from. Island of Themyscira, where the land of the Amazons are. She came to the modern world, man's world, as an ambassador of peace and hope. Who Steve Trevor is. He's the one that she brought back from Paradise Island when he crashed there. And so he is the impetus that brought her into the world, and they are in a relationship together. Who Etta Candy is. She is Wonder Woman's best friend and a member of a government agency, part of the military in this continuity. So those are the 4 things you need to know. It's all pretty self-explanatory on its own. Just reading the book, you're fine. This is a great place to start. Rucka's run is not going to alienate you from knowing what's going on in this. So this is a really, really good time to start. All right. That does it for the single issues this week. Hope everyone enjoyed those. Now, as I said at the beginning of the show, I'm starting to post the trades, the trade talk segments, as their own videos. So even though it's going to be kind of weird for those of you watching live or those of you watching after the fact, I need to actually not have those videos start as blatantly in the middle of something as they do. So I need to actually start doing an intro at the end of my show when I start to talk about a trade, because it's going to be its own video. So this is going to look weird. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Trade Talk. I'm Spartu, and today I have Black Panther, Little Green Men to talk about. You can, of course, check out Trade Talk every week, or you can check me out live on comic reviews every Wednesday night. Anyway, this week, Black Panther, Little Green Men. Okay, so we're continuing Hudlin's run, and I didn't dig the last trade. That one was just, it was crossover central, right? Like, it's not that it was badly written, it's not that it wasn't having fun, and I like when the story can just have fun and not have to be part of a huge, long building run. But it was having fun outside of the character's universe, you know? And not just because they traveled to an alternate Marvel universe with Marvel zombies, but like, it was having fun outside of T'Challa, Storm, and Wakanda. It was having fun in the wider Marvel universe as a whole. And, you know, I'm not particularly interested in that sort of thing. I want to read Black Panther to read Black Panther and not have him just be the star of his story, but to get immersed in his world. Because that's one of the things I find most fascinating about Black Panther. So I was hoping with Little Green Men to just get over that story, conclude it up, and be done with it. And be back in Africa, which is the name of the next book. This kind of gets us there, but I really enjoy the ride this time. So this has a kind of like an ominous opening, particularly given how the last volume ended with them being stuck on an exploding planet, and here T'Challa wakes up in front of the pearly gates. So that was kind of kick-ass and surprising. I'm like, oh my god, T'Challa's dead. But not really. There's like a whole sequence of what moments, and you know, I can get into it. So Black Panther thinks that that they've all died, and he goes searching after Storm and finds her among the X-Men in like this orgy. Honestly, they're in the middle of an orgy, and he's like, no, this can't be right. And Emma Frost and Storm are like, relax, T'Challa, we're all family now. It's trying to seduce him, and you know, you get this panel of Emma Frost kissing T'Challa, and he pushes her off. He's like, no, I'm married. And then they like, it's all creepy, and they merge together. And then, what's his name? God, what's his name? I cannot remember the name of the Panther God. Panther God shows up. Oh shit. It's the Panther God. What is this madness? Ugh. Now look here, Storm and the X-Men prepare to fight him, and T'Challa's like, Aurora, no, this is sacrilege. And Storm goes, no, look here, no disrespect, but we've faced our fair share of gods and celestial beings before. So before you start judging, the Panther God's not having any of that. He's like, you have broken a sacred vow to me. The penalty is death. And Storm's about to like try to talk to him. He just fucking eats her. Just chomp. Aurora! Kuma Ranger asked, how many times does T'Challa just verbally own somebody? Not many, but Cyclops starts to make some big grandstanding speech, and T'Challa just like stiff arms him into the ground, which is pretty cool. But yeah, we got like all this, the X-Men and T'Challa fighting, and it's like, no, this can't be real. None of this is real. It doesn't make any sense. It's all bullshit. There's no way this is reality. And then they all wake up, and they're in a dream being tortured by, what's the name of this guy? Let's see if I go to the next sequence here. If they give me his name. Psycho Man is operating on them and manipulating their minds. But it's okay, because to save the day come T'Challa's father in the Black Panther gear and other Black Panthers throughout history. And they defeat Psycho Man. But Storm's like, no, this can't be real. This doesn't make any sense. This isn't happening. And so, Inception sound. They wake up and they realize that they've been... They wake up for reals this time. And they realize they've been under the experiments of Psycho Man. They were in a torment within a torment within a torment. And it took Storm shocking the shit out of everyone to get them out of it. They find the Golden Frog, which I hadn't realized this. Let me go grab the volume. I was talking about Jack Kirby earlier tonight during the weekly comic review segment. This volume of Black Panther is coming up later this month, I think. Yeah, sometime later this month for the daily Trade Talk review posting. If you're watching this well after the fact, when this was posted, it's already up. But yeah, the Black Panther by Jack Kirby volumes are something I reviewed at one point. And I didn't notice this as I was reading the last volume that involved the Golden Frogs of King Solomon, but they were in the original Jack Kirby story. That was a part of the original Jack Kirby story, was the Black Panther and these Golden Frogs of King Solomon. So that was a neat reference that I didn't even pick up on. That you have these crazy mystical frog statue things causing all these problems for Black Panther, and he doesn't like relying on magic as opposed to science because it's too unreliable. That's really cool and really fun, and I'm flipping through this to see if we see because I'm not sure if the teleporting around the universe thing was something that the frogs could initially do. When connected in this, the frogs can shoot lasers out of their eyes. But I don't think... I'm just curious to see if we see them teleporting around or not. That's kind of a neat idea. Flaming car... Flying car... I don't think we see the frogs of King Solomon used to teleport in this volume, but I could just be missing something. In any case, not that important. So, in this one, they're talking about, oh, those frogs getting us into so much trouble. Well, you know what? We're going to light a fire under them because they're clearly doing this on purpose, and we're going to make them take us back home. And then the frogs just like, they're sitting there like, we know you can tell what's going on here. And we're tired of the way you're treating us. Johnny, light a fire. And then, like, frog just fucking dips and teleports their asses because it's sweating. He's like, I don't want to catch on fire. So it just fucking teleports their asses to another planet without it around this time. So it's clearly just fucking with them, which is great. But this time they're back in their own reality, which is an improvement. But they're on another Skrull planet and have to deal with a mob ring gladiatorial matchup stuff. So this is just complete Fantastic Four level of absurd science fantasy. But that's fine because we get something really, really interesting out of it as they put Black Panther in the ring and they capture Black Panther, the Thing, and the Human Torch, and put them in the gladiatorial ring. But Storm manages to get away and get across town to a section of the city that is run by a different style of government and gangs. It's the Harlem of this particular copy of Earth. And so they embrace her as one of their sisters. And they say, hey, we have someone you definitely should meet. It's Martin Luther King Jr. It's Skrull Martin Luther King Jr. In Black Panther. Martin Luther King Jr. That's awesome. That's fun. That's too cool for words. Oh. Anyway, so there's all this machinations and shit going on with the so-called Black Panthers of this universe. And Storm's sitting there discussing the history of this world with Martin Luther King Jr. when who walks in the room? Man, what's going on? I'm confused. Alrighty then. What? So, bye, Jacob. Sorry, folks. People in the live chat can be distracting sometimes. I thought they were talking to me about something, or I said something wrong, but whatever. Anyway, so yeah. Who shows up? Who else shows up to talk to Storm in this Skrull version of Black Panther Run Harlem? Malcolm X. Skrull Malcolm X and Skrull Martin Luther King Jr. are having a conversation with Queen Aurora Storm of Wakanda. Meanwhile, Black Panther's in a fighting arena beating the shit out of like mutant wolfmen or something. And then there's a plan to go rescue Black Panther, the Thing, and the Human Torch. Oh, Matthew Bennett wants to see the Wolfman. That's okay. I can show you the Wolfman T'Challa was fighting. Yeah, it's just a Wolfman. T'Challa's just fighting a Wolfman without any technology to help him in the ring. Oh. So yeah, this next cover for issue number 34 of Black Panther may just be one of the greatest things ever. That is so fucking cool. Oh my god, I'm in love with that cover. That is epic. That is a fantastic cover. That is so friggin' neat. Black Panthers and Storm with the big afro, big white afro because she's Storm. That's neat. Oh man, the blaxploitation, the awesomeness of that is perfect. It looks so 70s. Oh, that is sleek as shit. That is amazing. I'm so happy with this. So yeah, the Black Panthers, led by Storm and Malcolm X, lead a violent raid on the New York 20s style gangsters and save the day. Save T'Challa and the Thing and everybody, and all the gladiators, and restructure the society. And yeah, it's just, I don't know, like it's ridiculous levels of awesome action. Like earlier in the book, T'Challa was like threatening to rip this guy's throat out if he didn't call it off his men. He's like, I promise you will die by getting your throat slit if you do not call up your men. Hold on, where does this conversation happen? Because it's so awesome how he just fucking, it's just a boss, man. I promised you I would finish the job of cutting your throat. And guy's like, I will destroy your home planet, but you will still be dead. Woo! That's great. I love it. I just love it. So it just fucking brutally slits the guy's throat. He's like, you don't need to talk anymore. You had your chance to surrender. You could have negotiated peace. Your time is over. Just leaves the guy bleeding to death on the ground. That's fucking awesome. Oh. And then you just get like this great sequence of Black Panther walking out of a burning coliseum into a crowd of black people, and they all put their fist up in the air and say, "Power to the people!" He says, "Amandala, my brothers and sisters." The storm lands, and then you got Black Panther sitting there talking to Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. Oh. Yep. Yep, that was pretty freaking awesome. So they've got the golden frogs of King Solomon, and they're on their spaceship about to go back to Earth since they're in the right universe. But then the golden frogs say, "Oh, you'll be going back to Earth, but you don't need this spaceship because now it turns out they're alive." And they just fucking teleport them out of there. That's the end of the strip. So yeah, that volume, even though it is, again, it's not in Wakanda, it's not in Africa and all that stuff, which was why I'm reading the book, because I really like the way that Hudlin frames Wakanda as opposed to the rest of the world. That one just works a lot better because it's just more fundamentally about black politics and has fun with them in a really interesting way, and I thought that was cool. It's not my favorite volume of the run by far. And I do think, no matter how you slice it, the fact that the best volume of the run so far is undeniably the opening volume, the first 6 issues. I think that is a problem because it's a fantastic start that has not by any means reached that level again for me. But it's never that the run's been wholly bad. Even the stuff with Marvel Zombies, if I were a bigger zombie guy, or hell, if I even had read or enjoyed Marvel Zombies, I'm sure I would have enjoyed that volume just as much too. And there is still some stuff in that I like. The political subterfuge and intrigue there was still cool. But yeah, Little Green Men. Again, this and the previous volume are probably ultimately skippable. But I'm still like, I'm not like disappointed that I read them or anything like that. I want to get back to where we were with some of the stuff with T'Challa and Wakanda and the geopolitical commentary and stuff like that. Because that's where I feel like Hudlin's really got a lot to say and does a lot of really interesting stuff. Okay, everyone, that'll do it for this episode of Trade Talk and for this week's episode of Comic Reviews. Thanks for watching. Bye.